Two chess grandmasters are staring across a board that spans the entire continent. The twist? This isn't your typical game. The pieces are billion-dollar railways, massive ports, and mega dams. The stakes? The economic future of over 600 million Africans. Right now, East Africa and West Africa are locked in the most fascinating infrastructure race you have probably never heard about. And the winner, well, let me tell you, it's not who you think. You see, everyone talks about America versus China, Europe versus Asia, but the real game changer happening right now? It's playing out between Nairobi and Lagos, between the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and the Dangote Refinery. Ever wondered why your news feed isn't exploding with stories about Africa's trillion-dollar infrastructure boom? You see, here's what caught my attention last week. I'm digging through the Africa Data Finance Corporation and boom, West Africa has over $1 trillion in infrastructure projects in the pipeline. East Africa, about $750 billion. Now, your brain probably just said, West Africa wins, case closed, right? Wrong, dead wrong. And here's why this story gets interesting. Think of it like this. You can spend $100,000 on a Ferrari or spend $50,000 on a truck that actually hauls your business forward. East Africa chose the truck. But we will come back to that in a minute because I need to show you something that will flip everything you thought you knew about African development. Remember those three countries everyone said were finished when ECOWAS hit them with sanctions? Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger? The ones France used to buy uranium from at 0.8 euros and flip for 200 euros per kilogram. Well, those failed states have just accidentally become the blueprint for Africa's economic revolution. Want to know how a punishment became a masterclass in resource sovereignty? Keep watching because this connects to our East versus West story in ways that will surprise you. Now let's break down what's really happening on the ground. When you look at the data, and I mean really look, the picture becomes crystal clear. East Africa's projected growth for 2025? 5.7%. And there is more. Countries like Ethiopia are pushing past 7%. West Africa sitting at 4.4%. Now, why the difference? 3 words. Think of East Africa as a kid who studies smarter, not harder, while West Africa is building mega projects that primarily connect coastal cities. Basically, rich talking to rich. East Africa is playing a different game entirely. They are connecting landlocked countries to the ocean. Uganda gets access to Kenya's ports through the standard gauge railway. Ethiopia powers up 6 neighbors with the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Rwanda ships goods faster through Kenya than through traditional routes. You see the pattern? East Africa isn't building infrastructure, they are building interdependence. And that changes everything. But here's where the story takes a wild turn. You remember those Sahel states I mentioned? The ones everyone wrote off? They just pulled off something that has African governments from Gabon to Ghana completely rethinking their playbook. What happens when you tell 3 resource-rich nations they can't play in your economic sandbox anymore? They build their own, and it's working so well that countries across Africa are copying the homework. Gabon just told the European Union thanks but no thanks to their fishing deal. Why? Because they discovered the market value for their tuna was multiples higher than what Europe was paying. Ghana banned foreigners from directly trading gold. Chinese businessmen have been paying pennies worth fortunes of resources for decades. You know what this reminds me of? That friend who finally realizes they have been undercharging for their freelance work and decides to know their worth. Mali rewrote their mining codes. Burkina Faso nationalized gold mines. Niger started selling uranium at actual market prices instead of colonial era rates. And there is more. These moves aren't happening in isolation. Countries across Africa are watching, they are learning. The resource sovereignty wave is spreading faster than a viral TikTok dance. But how does this connect to our East versus West Africa infrastructure showdown? Now here is where the chess analogy becomes perfect. West Africa has been playing for massive scale. The Dangote Refinery processes 650,000 barrels per day. The Lekki Deep Sea Port handles massive shipping volumes. The planned Abidjan-Lagos Highway will connect 75% of West Africa's trade. That's massive, really impressive. But East Africa, they have been playing for regional integration. The standard gauge railway doesn't just move goods, it moves dreams. A trader in Uganda can now ship products to the Middle East through Kenya's Lamu Port in days, not weeks. Lamu Port is handling agreements with Ethiopia and South Sudan. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam isn't just powering Ethiopia, it's creating regional energy markets. You see the difference? West Africa is building bigger, East Africa is building together. And when you are trying to build or transform an entire continent, together beats bigger almost every time. But wait, there is a plot twist that is coming that nobody saw. Not the economists, not development experts, not even the politicians who created it. ECOWAS accidentally created the biggest gift to African development since independence. Want to know how a regional bloc's biggest mistake became Africa's masterclass in economic independence? Here's what nobody saw coming. ECOWAS sanctions 3 countries struggling to gain resource sovereignty. The goal was to force them to come back in line. The results, those 3 countries said, fine, we'll prove you wrong. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger formed the alliance of Sahel states. They pulled out of ECOWAS, they took control of their resources, and guess what happened? They started making more money than they ever did under the old system. France used to buy Niger's uranium for spare change and sell it for premium prices. Now Niger controls the entire value chain. The revenue difference? Think of buying a candy bar versus buying the entire candy store. ECOWAS accidentally proved that African unity doesn't require external permission. Sometimes the best integration comes from necessity, not from bureaucracy. So here we are, West Africa building big, East Africa building smart, the Sahel proving that resource sovereignty isn't just possible, it's profitable. If you are watching this from Lagos, Nairobi or anywhere in the diaspora, here's what this means for you. First, the infrastructure race isn't about East versus West. It's about 2 different models of African development succeeding simultaneously. Second, the resource sovereignty revolution is creating investment opportunities you have never seen before. Third, the next decade will determine whether Africa becomes the world's next economic powerhouse or remains a source of cheap raw materials. And the window for getting involved is open right now. Talking about getting involved, remember that video I made about how Burkina Faso became a global sensation overnight? After watching this video, you need to see that breakdown because it shows exactly how Ibrahim Traore's leadership style is inspiring presidents across Africa to rethink their entire approach to governance and resource management. Trust me, the connection between that story and what we just discussed will blow your mind. Here is the truth nobody talks about. All this we've been talking about isn't really about East Africa versus West Africa. It's about Africa versus the status quo. East Africa chose the chess strategy. Every move sets up the next, building towards long-term regional dominance through cooperation. West Africa chose the checkers approach. Big, bold moves capture immediate attention and resources. The Sahel states, they flipped the entire board and said, we are working by our own rules. And you know what? All three strategies are working. So here's my challenge to you. Stop thinking about African development as something happening to the continent and start seeing it as something you can be part of. Whether you're in the diaspora, looking for investment opportunities, a young African entrepreneur planning your next move, the infrastructure revolution needs your participation, not just your observation. So here's what I want you to know. Which story inspired you the most? East Africa's smart integration? West Africa's bold skill? Or Sahel's resource revolution? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's continue this conversation, because the future of Africa isn't built in boardrooms in Washington or Beijing. It's been discussed by visionaries in Addis Ababa, Lagos, Nairobi, and Ouagadougou. And that, my friend, is the real story behind Africa's infrastructure race. My name is Hassan Wadris. I'll see you in my next investigation. Bye.